These are some of the most common question types in IELTS speaking. Each tests a specific language skill. Today, I'll show you 6 easy techniques that can help you give beautiful, extended answers the examiner would love to hear from you. It's Sassy here. Let's get started. The first question is, did you? It invites you to speak about your past, and the technique you could use is using different ways to talk about the past. Let me show you 2 sample answers. Pay attention to the different ways I'm talking about the past. The question is, did you see a lot of films about robots when you were a child? Well, yes, I've always been a great fan of sci-fi movies, and when I was a kid, I watched as many as I could. My favorites were the Terminator films, especially the first 4 in this series. I would watch them with my friends again and again. I also used to like some animated films about robots, like Wall-E. Now, the second answer for someone who wants to say no. Again, listen to the ways I'm talking about the past. No, not really. It's strange because I saw one of the Terminator films on TV the other day and I quite liked it. But when I was a child, I was more into movies like Finding Nemo or Happy Feet. I used to watch them all the time with my younger siblings. I guess it was because my parents would always make sure that we never saw anything scary or violent. So, how can we talk about the past? First of all, let me note that both sample answers start off by answering the question directly. Well, yes. No, not really. And then extend with some examples. In both answers, we can see 3 different verb forms. The first is, of course, the past simple. Was, saw, could, were, and so on. The next is used to plus verb to talk about regular habits from the past that are no longer true. I used to like some animated films. I used to watch them all the time. This structure is extremely useful when you want to talk about past habits or opinions which are no longer true today. Here are some simple examples. I used to play basketball. I used to sleep until midday. Another interesting structure here is the would plus verb to show repeated actions from the past. I would watch them with my friends again and again. Our parents would always make sure we often use would when we talk about something we did regularly that we're nostalgic about. Like at school, I would spend all my evenings with friends. Good old days. Just one word of warning. If you use some of these structures in your exam, it would be great for your score, but only if you can continue speaking reasonably fluently and without a lot of mistakes. So learn the grammar I'm showing you and then apply what's suitable for your level. Don't overcomplicate your answers. Let's move on to the second question. Will in the future? This type of question is about the future, as you've probably guessed. And the technique for the answer is similar to the previous question. Use various verb tenses. Pay attention to the verb tenses in this answer. The question is, how important will robots be in the future? Well, I guess they'll become more and more important. I mean, they've already been used in industry for years, in car manufacturing, for example. A doctor friend of mine told me recently that robots can be used and are being used in surgery, such as heart operations. So I think, yes, robots will play an increasingly important role in our lives. This type of question, where you are asked to predict the future, doesn't mean you must talk only about the future. Yes, we have at the beginning and end, and we use the future simple to make predictions. They'll become more and more important. Robots will play a role. But in the middle, we have a way to extend the answer by referring to what we've read or learned from somewhere. And to do that, we can use a mixture of verb tenses, like present perfect, have been used, present continuous, are being used, as well as the modal verb can be used. But look again at these examples. What do you notice? That's right, the passive voice. If we make robots our subject, then this grammatical structure is very useful. And don't forget that the examiner will be paying attention to the variety of complex structures you use. Using a wide range of structures correctly and appropriately is important. The next question is, would you prefer or And it's all about preference and choice. And the technique I want to show you is adding conditions. Listen for if and unless. And we have a new topic. Would you prefer to use an online map or a paper one? An online one, definitely. It's so easy to follow on my phone, unless I'm somewhere where I can't get a signal. To be honest, even if I had a paper map, I'm not so sure I would be able to use it properly. I think people of my generation are so used to trusting their smartphones for everything. The question is asking you to make a choice, an online map or a paper map. At the beginning, we see that choice. An online one, definitely. Direct question, direct answer. To extend this answer, I mentioned two conditions. It's so easy to follow on my phone unless I can't get a signal. So the condition is we need the signal, unless there is no signal. The second is imagining the condition. If I had a paper map, I'm not sure I would be able to use it. This is an unreal situation because right now I don't have a map. I'm imagining it with the past simple if I had and would, I would be able. One form examiner I'm working with loves them, the conditional sentences, because he says it's a good sign that the test taker can handle a range of complex structures. Another example, if I go somewhere for the first time, I will always check how to get there on my phone first. In this case, we have the present simple if I go in the condition and the future simple in the main clause, I will always check. Another classic question with the word would is, would you do this? I know we think of would you as a kind of conditional or hypothetical situation, but it can also be a chance for you to tell a short personal story. Would you take a map with you on holiday? I think for me, I really should. And I always do after what happened to me a couple of years ago. I remember trying to find my way around London on my first trip there. I was looking for the British Museum and I'd forgotten to bring my street map with me. So I had to keep on asking strangers for directions. They were all tourists like me and had no idea. In the end, I stopped to ask a police officer for the way. But by the time I got there, it had closed. Speaking Part 1 is all about us, our experiences and opinions, and one way to share our experiences is by telling a little story. But one word of warning, or actually two. First, don't forget that you have around 25 seconds per answer, so keep your story short. Second, give a direct answer to the question at the start. then when the examiner wants to move on to the next question, no problem. And if they stop you in the middle of your story and ask the next question, that's fine too. In our story, notice the use of the verbs remember and forget. I remember trying to find my way. When we talk about our memories and are recalling past events, we use the gerund, the verb plus ing. For example, I remember playing video games with my friends after school. Or, I'll never forget going to the cinema for the first time. But when we use these same verbs to talk about what we need to do or a reminder to do something, we use to plus verb. I must remember to take my camera with me. I forgot to answer that email last night. Now, let's move on to the and explain why. Do you know where this question is used? Let's look at this quite challenging part 2 topic. Describe a historical period that you are interested in. You should say what the historical period is, how you learned about it, what happened during this period, and explain why you find it interesting. So our question is used at the very end of each part 2 task. And it's key to this task because it allows you to use more complex ideas, vocabulary, and grammar. Here is a technique that can help you develop your ideas and indeed extend your part 2 answer overall. It consists of several steps. Express your opinion, give examples, qualify and clarify, and summarize the main points. So let me show you what it means. We're not gonna look at the full 2-minute answer, just at the explain why part. What I find most interesting about the 1920s is how dramatically the role of women in society changed during that decade. It was in the 20s when they were able to vote for the first time in the USA and the UK, and not only that, more and more women entered the workplace. Having said that, it's true that most of those jobs were in low-paid office work. Yet, what is clear is that it was a time when young women started to become more independent and to play a role in society outside of their households. What I would say is that they were pioneers, paving the way for us in the 21st century. This part alone is already around a minute. Plus, you talk about the first 3 bullet points before, and you get to your 2 minutes. Notice here the phrase, having said that. It's a great way to introduce a counter-argument, and it's commonly used when we speak. An alternative? At the same time. There is one more interesting aspect of spoken English we can use in our answers. Cleft sentences. We use them to emphasize certain important parts or ideas in our sentences. And we had as many as 4 of them. What I find most interesting about the 1920s is how the role of women, or it was in the 20s when they were able to vote. What is clear is that it was a time. What I would say is that they were pioneers. When we want to emphasize something when we speak, we put it at the beginning. Compare this. They were able to vote for the first time in the 1920s. It was in the 1920s when they were able to vote for the first time. There are many ways to start your sentences like this. Here are some. What interests me is, what surprises or annoys me is. What is clear is that, what happened was that, or with it. It was in 2005 when it was Alex who. These techniques can help you show a wider range of grammar, which is great for your grammar score, while also extending your answers and speaking naturally, which should help with your fluency. So try to incorporate them into your practice and see which ones you can use without harming your accuracy or causing a lot of hesitation. These are the features for your exam day. Another technique that would be really useful for you is to learn how to answer challenging part 2 tasks when it seems like you have nothing to say. And you can learn it in this video here and see a full part 2 answer. Thank you so much for watching me today. Good luck with your preparation and your exam. Bye!